Have you ever stopped and wondered where you really stand financially when it comes to retirement? Not where your neighbour stands, not where your co-worker stands, not where some celebrity on television stands, but where you stand. Because the truth is, retirement isn't just about reaching a certain age. It's about reaching a level of financial confidence where you can wake up in the morning and know your money is working for you instead of you working for your money. And here's what I've discovered after years of studying retirement success stories and retirement failures. Most people don't actually know what stage of retirement wealth they're in. They have a rough idea. They know whether they're doing okay or struggling, but they don't have a clear framework that tells them exactly where they are, what challenges they're likely to face, and most importantly, what steps they can take to improve their future. That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to walk through the 4 stages of retirement wealth. As we go through these stages, I want you to be honest with yourself. Don't compare yourself to someone else. Don't judge yourself. Just listen carefully and identify where you are today. Because once you know where you are, you can start building a plan to get where you want to go. Let's start with the first stage, the survival stage. Now, nobody dreams about ending up here. Nobody spends decades working and saving, hoping to merely survive retirement. But unfortunately, millions of people find themselves facing exactly this reality. The survival stage is when retirement income comes primarily from Social Security benefits, with only modest personal savings available to supplement those checks. These retirees aren't focused on luxury. They're not worried about vacation homes. They're not thinking about leaving massive inheritances. They're simply trying to make ends meet. Every month becomes a balancing act. Can they pay the utility bill? Can they afford groceries? Can they handle rising healthcare costs? Can they replace a broken appliance without creating a financial crisis? For people living in this stage, every unexpected expense feels like an emergency. A car repair isn't an inconvenience. It's a threat. A medical bill isn't frustrating, it's frightening. And the emotional weight that comes with this kind of financial pressure can be overwhelming. What's especially heartbreaking is that many people don't realize they're heading toward this stage until it's almost too late to change course. For years, they assume things will somehow work out. Then suddenly retirement is 5 years away. 3 years away, 1 year away, and reality starts showing up. Now, maybe you're watching this and you're thankful because this doesn't describe your situation. If that's you, take a moment and appreciate that. Gratitude matters. But don't tune out, because understanding this stage can help you avoid decisions that might move you backward later in life. And maybe this stage does sound familiar. Maybe you're concerned that this could be your future. If so, don't lose hope. The fact that you're paying attention today already puts you ahead of many people. Awareness creates opportunity. You can't solve a problem you refuse to acknowledge. So let's talk about what you can do. The first step might surprise you. Become happier at work. Seriously. Many people assume the solution is simply earning more money. Sometimes that's true, but often the bigger opportunity is finding a way to reduce stress and increase sustainability. Why? Because if you enjoy your work more, you can often continue working longer. Even a few extra years can dramatically improve your retirement outlook. A few additional years of income, a few additional years of saving,
a few additional years delaying withdrawals from your investments. Those years matter more than most people realize. The second thing you can do is aggressively evaluate your spending habits and debt obligations. Debt steals future freedom. Every payment you send to a lender is money that can't be invested for your future. Every dollar tied up in consumer debt reduces your flexibility later in life. This doesn't mean you have to live miserably. It means becoming intentional. It means deciding what truly matters. It means making sure your money reflects your priorities. And while you're saving, remember something many retirees discover too late. You don't want every single dollar locked inside retirement accounts. Having some accessible savings outside retirement plans can provide flexibility and reduce tax complications later. The third step is maximizing Social Security benefits whenever possible. This decision can affect your income for decades.
A larger monthly benefit doesn't just help today, it helps every year moving forward. And because Social Security includes cost of living adjustments, those increases can become incredibly valuable over a long retirement. Now let's move to stage 2. This is where many middle-class Americans find themselves. I call this stage stretching. Stretching is an interesting place because on the surface, things often look good. You might have a nice home, you might drive a reliable vehicle, you may have retirement accounts growing steadily, friends and family might assume you're doing great. But underneath the surface, there's tension. You feel it, you know it's there, you're stretching to maintain a lifestyle, you're stretching to save enough. You're stretching to keep multiple financial goals alive at the same time. And there's a nagging concern in the back of your mind. What if retirement requires a much bigger lifestyle reduction than I expected? That's a question that keeps people awake at night. Because they don't necessarily fear retirement, they fear losing the life they've worked decades to build. One of the biggest warning signs of this stage is realizing that your retirement income may replace far less of your current earnings than you expected. Imagine spending 30 or 40 years building a lifestyle around a certain level of income, then suddenly discovering that retirement may only provide half of that amount. That's a difficult adjustment. Another sign is carrying debt into retirement. The mortgage isn't gone, the credit cards aren't gone, the vehicle payments aren't gone, and every one of those obligations competes with your retirement income. Another common symptom is something I see all the time. People start creating financial survival plans disguised as financial strategies. They tell themselves things like, I'm going to buy one last vehicle and keep it forever. I'm never going to travel again. I'm going to stop spending money on things I enjoy. Now, there's nothing wrong with being responsible, but if your entire retirement plan depends on never replacing anything, never enjoying anything, and never facing unexpected expenses, that's not really a plan, that's wishful thinking. Then there's another challenge, the dream problem. You know exactly what I'm talking about, the second home, the boat, the RV, the dream lifestyle you've imagined for years. Part of you wants it desperately, another part of you suspects it may not fit reality, and you're stuck between those two worlds. This emotional tug of war creates enormous stress, because defining enough is one of the hardest financial questions you'll ever answer. How much is enough? How much security is enough? How much spending is enough? How much wealth is enough? Most people never consciously answer those questions. They just keep running, keep earning, keep accumulating, without ever deciding where the finish line actually is. Now, here's what happens psychologically. People in the stretching stage typically react one of two ways. Some obsess over money constantly. Every market movement matters. Every headline matters. Every expense becomes a source of anxiety. Others do the exact opposite. They avoid looking at the numbers. They ignore the statements. They postpone planning. They tell themselves they'll deal with it later. Neither approach works. The solution is action, clarity. An honest evaluation. Start by writing down your financial story, not the version you tell yourself, the actual version: income, investments, savings, debts, expenses, assets, everything. Put it on paper, because uncertainty grows in darkness, clarity grows in daylight. Next, calculate what your desired lifestyle actually costs, not your estimated lifestyle. Not your fantasy lifestyle, your real lifestyle. How much will housing cost, healthcare, food, travel, entertainment, family support? Once you understand the real numbers, you can begin making intentional choices. And yes, some of those choices may be difficult. You may need to save more. You may need to work longer. You may need to let go of certain goals. But making difficult decisions today is far better than being forced into difficult decisions later. And here's the encouraging part. Most people who take action during this stage can dramatically improve their future. They aren't stuck. They aren't trapped. They're simply at a crossroads. And often that crossroads leads directly into stage 3, the stability stage. Now, this is where retirement starts feeling very different. This is where financial planning begins producing peace instead of pressure. People in the stability stage aren't rich by every definition, but they have something many wealthy people never achieve: confidence. They know their bills can be paid. They know emergencies can be handled. They know retirement isn't built on hope alone. It's built on preparation. When someone reaches the stability stage, life begins to feel different. The constant financial tension starts to fade. The fear of every market downturn becomes less intense. Unexpected expenses become inconveniences instead of disasters. And perhaps most importantly, retirement starts looking like something you can actually enjoy instead of something you have to survive. These are the people who have built a solid foundation. Maybe they don't own private jets. Maybe they aren't buying vacation properties every year, but they have enough. And there is tremendous power in enough. Enough allows you to sleep better at night. Enough allows you to spend time with family without constantly thinking about money. Enough allows you to enjoy experiences instead of calculating every penny. Many people who arrive at this stage didn't do anything flashy. They weren't financial geniuses. They weren't necessarily earning massive salaries. Instead, they consistently practiced good habits. They paid attention to their budget. They reduced debt. They contributed to retirement accounts year after year. They avoided financial disasters. And over time, those ordinary decisions created extraordinary results. One thing I've noticed is that stable retirees tend to understand something important. Retirement success is rarely built through one giant decision. It's built through thousands of small decisions repeated consistently over decades. It's saying no to things that don't matter. It's saying yes to things that do. It's investing regularly when nobody is watching. It's continuing when progress feels slow. It's staying committed when others quit. Eventually, those decisions compound, not just financially, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Because financial stability doesn't simply create wealth, it creates freedom. Now, people always ask, how much money do I need to reach this stage? And honestly, that's not the right question. Because retirement isn't experienced through account balances, it's experienced through cash flow. Two families can each have $1 million saved and experience retirement completely differently. One family may feel abundant, the other may feel stressed. Why? Lifestyle, spending habits, debt, taxes, healthcare costs, family obligations, location. All these variables matter. That's why comparing yourself to national averages can be misleading. If you have $500,000 saved, you're already ahead of many Americans. If you have $1 million saved, you're ahead of even more. But those numbers alone don't determine retirement success. What matters is whether your resources support your lifestyle. One of the most useful guidelines for evaluating stability is the well-known 4% rule. The concept is simple. If approximately 4% of your retirement savings combined with your other reliable income sources can support your lifestyle needs, you're often entering stable retirement territory. That doesn't mean the rule is perfect. It isn't, but it provides a useful benchmark. Let's think about it another way. Imagine retirement as a bridge. Your savings represent the structure. Your income sources represent the support beams. Your expenses represent the weight traveling across the bridge. If the bridge is strong enough to consistently support the weight, you have stability. If it's not, problems eventually emerge. Stable retirees typically share several characteristics. First, they have dependable income. Their essential expenses are covered. Housing, food, utilities, insurance, transportation, the basics are handled. Second, they maintain emergency reserves. Life continues happening after retirement. Roofs leak, cars break down, medical surprises occur. Stable retirees prepare for those realities. Third, they generally carry little debt, or ideally, no debt at all. Debt steals flexibility, and flexibility becomes incredibly valuable in retirement. Fourth, they have proper insurance coverage, not because they expect disasters, but because they understand risk management. One major event shouldn't be capable of destroying decades of hard work. Now, here's something important. Many people assume that once they reach stability, all challenges disappear. That's not true. The challenges simply change. One of the biggest threats to a stable retirement is healthcare. Healthcare costs can rise dramatically over time. And many retirees underestimate how much those expenses may impact their finances. The second major challenge is taxes. This is where many people unknowingly leave money on the table. They spend decades focused on accumulation. Then retirement arrives, and suddenly distribution becomes the game. Where should withdrawals come from? Traditional retirement accounts, Roth accounts, brokerage accounts, Social Security, pensions. The order matters, the strategy matters, taxes matter. A good withdrawal strategy can potentially preserve more wealth and provide greater flexibility throughout retirement. That's why financial planning doesn't stop when retirement begins. In many ways, it enters a completely new chapter. Now, here's something fascinating. When researchers study successful retirees, they often find that stability represents the destination most people are actually seeking. Not extreme wealth, not billionaire status, not unlimited luxury, just stability, the ability to enjoy life without constant financial fear, the ability to spend time with loved ones, the ability to pursue hobbies, the ability to sleep peacefully. And honestly, that's a beautiful goal, but there is one more stage, one more level of retirement wealth. And this final stage changes everything. Stage 4, abundance. Now, when people hear the word abundance, they immediately think about giant bank accounts. And yes, sometimes abundance includes substantial wealth. But abundance is about much more than numbers. Abundance is a mindset shift. It's a completely different relationship with money. In the earlier stages, most financial questions revolve around survival and security. Can I pay my bills? Can I afford retirement? Will my money last? But abundance introduces entirely new questions. Questions many people never imagined they would ask. Questions like, how can I make a meaningful impact? How can I help my children and grandchildren? How can I support causes I care about? What legacy do I want to leave behind? How can I use my resources to improve other people's lives? Those are abundance questions. And they're powerful because they represent a shift away from fear, a shift away from scarcity, a shift toward purpose. I've seen people spend decades operating from a survival mentality. Even when they were financially secure, they worried constantly, they stressed constantly, they prepared constantly. And then one day they realized something. They had enough, actually more than enough, and suddenly everything changed. Their focus moved from accumulation to contribution, from protection to impact, from preservation to purpose. Now, abundance doesn't always require $10 million. Sometimes people reach abundance because their expenses are modest and their income is exceptionally reliable. Maybe they have strong pension income. Maybe Social Security covers most of their needs. Maybe their home is paid off. Maybe their investment portfolio continues growing despite withdrawals. Whatever the reason, they discover something remarkable. Their money is increasing faster than they're spending it. Think about that for a moment. For decades, they worried about running out. Now they're trying to figure out what to do with the excess. That's a completely different problem. And honestly, it's a wonderful problem to have. These retirees begin asking sophisticated questions. How should we structure charitable giving? Should we establish family gifting strategies? How can we reduce unnecessary taxes? Should we help fund education for grandchildren? Should we support organisations that align with our values? How can we transfer wealth responsibly? Notice how different these questions are. Nobody is asking whether they can afford groceries. Nobody is wondering whether the electric bill can be paid. The conversation has evolved. The mission has evolved. The purpose has evolved.
One challenge that often surprises abundant retirees is the complexity of generosity. Giving money sounds simple. In reality, it's not always easy. Many people want to help their children, but they don't want to create dependency. They want to provide opportunities, but they don't want to eliminate motivation. They want to transfer wealth, but they also want to transfer values. That's a delicate balance, and it requires wisdom. Another major challenge involves taxes. The more wealth someone accumulates, the more important tax strategy becomes. At earlier stages, taxes are often an annoyance. At the abundance stage, taxes become a major planning consideration, because every dollar unnecessarily lost to taxes is a dollar that can't support family, charity, or legacy goals. This is why abundance often requires advanced planning, not because the individual is worried about survival, but because they want to maximize impact. And here's something that may surprise you.
Many people enter retirement at the stability stage and eventually grow into abundance. It happens more often than you think. Maybe their spending ends up being lower than expected. Maybe investment returns exceed projections. Maybe they inherit assets. Maybe tax strategies work better than anticipated. Maybe healthcare expenses remain manageable. Often it's a combination of factors. Years pass, the portfolio grows, confidence grows, and eventually they realize they're no longer simply maintaining stability. They're creating abundance. Now let's pause for a moment. As you've listened to these 4 stages, you've probably recognized yourself somewhere along the journey. Maybe you're currently in the survival stage. Maybe you're stretching and trying to close the gap. Maybe you've built a stable retirement and are enjoying the rewards of decades of discipline. Or maybe you've reached a place of abundance where your focus is increasingly centered on impact and legacy. Wherever you are, remember this: these stages are not labels, they're not judgments, they're simply tools, they're road signs, they're snapshots of your current position. And positions can change. That's the most important takeaway from today's discussion. Your future is not determined solely by where you are today. It's influenced by the choices you make tomorrow. Every dollar saved matters. Every debt eliminated matters. Every smart financial decision matters. Every year of preparation matters. Financial success rarely happens overnight, but neither does financial failure. Both are usually the result of consistent actions repeated over time. That's actually good news, because it means improvement is possible. You don't need perfection. You don't need to become a financial expert. You don't need to predict the stock market. You simply need clarity, discipline, and a willingness to take action. The person who starts planning today is almost always better off than the person who waits another 5 years. The person who faces reality today is almost always better off than the person who avoids it. And the person who consistently makes wise financial decisions gains advantages that compound year after year after year. So take some time after this video, sit down, review your finances honestly, determine which stage best describes your situation, then ask yourself one simple question: what's the next step I can take to move forward? Not 10 steps, not 20 steps, one step, because progress doesn't begin with perfection. Progress begins with action. And remember, retirement isn't ultimately about money. Money is just a tool. Retirement is about freedom. It's about choices. It's about relationships. It's about purpose. It's about having the ability to spend your time in ways that matter most to you. The better your financial foundation becomes, the more freedom you create to live that life. So identify your stage, build your plan, stay consistent, and keep moving forward. Because no matter where you are today, your financial story is still being written, and the decisions you make from this point forward may completely change the chapters that come next.